Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another Rookie Card Collector 123 video. Today's video is one that I never expected to be making, but I felt at this point it was necessary for me to get my feelings and my thoughts out there. And maybe if nothing else, getting it off my chest will make myself feel a little bit better. But as many have talked about and done videos on over the past week or so, some really sad hobby news has come out regarding auctions and prices of items and specifically shill bidding, which, as many people have talked about, is not a new phenomenon. This has been going on for decades now, and people have gotten into trouble for it before. I guess people continue to get into trouble because of it, and there's bad actors, bad collectors out there that um, are just in the hobby. Not that they don't love the cards. I believe a lot of them do love the cards, but the financial aspect of it just becomes too great. And the numbers today, as over the last couple of years, prices and values of things have just kept escalating, primarily with the higher end collectibles, the five, six, seven figure collectibles, much more so than the modest lower value items. So, to me, at this point, it appears that the true collector, or the buyer, let's say, um, participating, whether it's an eBay auction, whether it's an auction house auction, um, buying at card shows, um, all these things going on related to shill bidding affect not only directly the auction house and the buyer for an item that's shill bid up in an auction house situation, but everything reverts back to every one of us who's collecting and buying sports cards. Um, the the show bidding just came out this past week, news of it, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen the videos about that. And it's had me take a real look back at not only this past week or not even more recently, the past 6 months or a year, but for a couple of years now, going back. I've notated and mentioned my feelings, primarily on Net54. That's the main forum, vintage sports card forum, that I've belonged to since around 2005 or so. I only started making YouTube videos a few months ago, and really just the last couple of months been actively doing it. But my thoughts, starting a couple of years ago, was that values of stuff were starting to become crazy, and much more so in the higher end items as opposed to the more common stuff and the more desirable items. Things like Babe Ruth rookie cards, one of two, one of three Joe Jackson cards, high grade PSA 8, PSA 9 Cobbs, Wagner's, Jacksons. That's the kind of stuff where prices have gotten crazy in the last couple of years. Prior to that, beginning in 2020 with the COVID lockdown and everybody being stuck at home, um, I think the people again with the high value, high end cards, either are buying that stuff or selling that stuff. The people that already own them. I think they saw an opportunity where people were locked in their homes. They couldn't travel. They couldn't go to restaurants. The sporting events were all canceled. So people at home locked up looking for something to do and spending money on sports cards and buying sports cards online via auction house or on eBay. That was a way for them to get some pleasure and enjoyment out of their life, which was not very fun at that point. And so I think a lot of these bad actors took advantage of that, and we started to see the craziness around 2020, and then especially into early 2021 going on, where prices started to go crazy from where they were from 2019 and earlier. Um, and that should have been a warning sign that, you know, the $1,000 stimulus checks that were coming out 2 or 3 times from the government were not funding these six-figure transactions, five, six, seven-figure transactions. Although people try to put the blame on that. People were stuck. They had money saved, not spending on vacations, whatever, like I said before. So there was money to be spent. And I believe that's where the auction house, the real serious shill bidding, started and drove up very quickly, drove up the prices. The first things to skyrocket was modern basketball. And one auction house had um, specifically sold a lot of modern basketball, um, getting super high prices on rookie patch autographs and PSA 10s and all kinds of stuff. It proliferated. All the auction houses were getting strong figures. The eBay numbers were going crazy. eBay was never seen such kind of revenue coming from sports cards before. Everything was going crazy, and that should have been a sign to us longtime collectors that something's not right here, and maybe we need to take a step back, step away from the hobby at this point. Um, but unfortunately for my personal situation, by 2020, 2021, I had been out of work for several years after some major health issues. So I was already not working since 2014. It's about 6 or 7 years at that point. Um, so not going to work and being home every day, while after a relocation to a different state from my previous years growing up north and moving down to the southeast. Um, was not a fun time for me, and the one enjoyment that I would continue to get would be through my sports card collection. And once 2020 came around and all, prices were getting insane. And rather than step back, which would have been, in hindsight, would have been the right choice, the right thing to do, and just wait it out on the sidelines and, save up my money for when prices came back to reality. Instead of doing that, I try to keep ahead of the rising prices, which now looking back, we have a very good idea why those prices were rising so fast. And I bought into the, FOMO, fear of missing out, like a lot of people did, and bought a lot of stuff, and basically used up all the cash that I had. And over the next few years after that, ended up being in a very bad situation because, like I said, I've been out of work for so many years now, and still out of work. And I have no income, I have no money coming in, and so the card collection is my only source of getting money to pay bills and stuff. So I would have to sell cards. Almost every single case, everything I sold was below the money I got back out of it was well below what I paid for it, because of the run up in the market. Then as we got to 2023, 2024, Prices started to slowly go back up, but not very much on the stuff I had, which is the lower end, lower value stuff. I almost never was able to buy a five figure, never, never six figure, seven figure card. So most of the stuff I had was in the hundreds, probably. Occasionally I'd have a few four figure cards. So percentage wise, I did extremely badly as far as the stuff that I bought and then resold because I needed the money to pay bills. Um, Percentage wise, I had huge losses, but dollar wise, it wasn't as some other collectors experienced that were buying five and six and seven figure cards. But for me, having no income and no hopes of going back to work again, really, was a major problem. So now today we're in this environment where the show bidding situations, the auction houses. I like the number of people have noticed the auction house terms and conditions have changed over the past short period of time, maybe over the last year or 2 years. Um, Maybe going back to the furthest back, maybe 2020 or so, where the auction houses have in their terms now that they can bid on items in their auction. Auction house employees can bid on items in their auction. Consigners, in some cases, are able to bid on items in their auction. Um, so at this point of the game, as bad as everything's been over the past several years, and I've noticed, huge, like I said, huge upticks in values and something being wrong. Now it becomes really hits home what is wrong, and I think the time, at least for me, the time has come to take that step back and just watch from the sidelines at this point, which is really very hurtful for me because, like I said, I've been out of work for so long. The only one of the only things in life that I get to enjoy is my sports card collection, and now that's going to come to an end just about as far as acquiring new pieces because the financial aspect of it is so important for me because I have no money coming in beside that, so I can't afford to lose money on the stuff I have. It's too late now, but a lot of the stuff I bought, I probably overpaid for the obvious reason of what's going on today and what was going on probably over the last 5 years that I bought all this stuff. So, but all I could do is avoid it going forward. So the what I've decided to do, and maybe other people, want to start thinking long and hard about what they need to do, and make their decisions, what's going to be in their best interests. But what I decided to do was any item that I'm interested in that comes up either for sale or for auction, if I can just look at the transaction, like an arm's length transaction, and I can just look at it and say, for example, we've got a PSA 3 Willie Mays 51 Bowman rookie. Well, if that comes up for sale somewhere in a platform, and it's got a $4,000 price tag for a PSA 3 Mays, well, I can just look at that transaction. I don't need to pull up comps and see what PSA 3s have sold for. I can just look at it and say that's a good deal. That's too good for me to pass up, and I will go ahead and buy in that situation. That's going to be the only situation that I'm going to moving forward. I'm going to go ahead and buy and add to my collection at least for the time being until I see things start to change in the hobby. Um, Prices start to come back to reality. When it's necessary, people start getting disciplined and pay for what they've done over these past several years. Unfortunately, the majority of what's happened has not been on the lower value stuff, the $50, $100, $200 cards. It's been in the 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, $13 million cards, and everybody has their circle of friends in their collecting world, and friends help each other, whether it's looking for a card that one of them needs for the collection, others will help. Various different things like that. Well, in the high end world, um, you can imagine what friends do to help each other. I'll just leave it at that. Um, and prices have gone insane over the past 5 or 6 years. So I think you can probably put two and two together and figure out where I'm going with this. Unfortunately, on the low end scale, the stuff I collect and a lot of probably 95% of other collectors do, the $100, $200, $50 cards. Um, Although it's in the auction house terms and conditions now in many cases, the auction house I would almost guarantee, is not going to be agreeable to doing what a consigner asks them to do for a $200 card. They'll just turn down the consignment. When it's a $2 million card, it's another story. Unfortunately, that's the reality. Money talks and everything else walks. And these days, it's even more so, I think. So, that being said, rather than just almost never being able to buy anything and just, going nowhere with my collecting, I'm going to revert back to my younger days and a lot of things that I enjoyed. I used to go to minor league games and get item cards and sports memorabilia items signed by some of the players, which I'm sure I haven't done it in decades, but I'm sure today that'll be much more difficult than it used to be. But I'll probably do some of that. I'll probably pick up some minor league sets from the 70s and 80s, when I was big into collecting that stuff. And, you can buy a lot of those team sets for a few bucks. Some of my favorite players, some of the cards I like from the 70s, 80s, 90s, stuff I did growing up. Just so that I can continue in the hobby and I have something to collect, add to the collection, go back and look at during my free time, which I have a lot of with being out of work. So, so I'm not giving up on the hobby entirely, but knowing everything that I know now and I've known for the past 5 or 6 years, it would be financially irresponsible for me to continue buying into the to the world that we're in. Um, I just not in a financial position that I can afford to do it. Everybody else's financial situation might be different, and you can do what's best for you. But don't think I have too much more to say. A couple of thoughts on the shill bidding thing going on right now. Like I said earlier, even if you're not the person participating in the auction house auctions, I know a lot of collectors don't really participate in that. A lot of them bid on eBay. Well, I rarely have been participating in auctions, mostly because it tends to be higher value stuff, and I don't have the money for it being out of work. But eBay, I never participate in auctions, or almost never. I just don't like the auction concept. And of course, shill bidding has been suspected for many, many years there. So almost everything I buy is a buy it now, where I make my determination the price is acceptable to me, and I go ahead and buy it, or I buy it at a card show. Well, unfortunately, like I said, anything where I've got to look up comps now going forward is going to be an automatic not buy, because based on what I see and what I've seen for the last several years now, is every comp that's out there can be fake. These could have been shill bidding on eBay, shill bidding through an auction house, um, whatever, and even if the auction house goes back to the more stringent terms and conditions and removes the ability to bid on their own items and the consigner can bid on their own items, well, guess what? The people that are doing this, they have other ways of going about it. They have friends. The friends can bid on the item. It's different name, different phone number, different address, different credit card, different IP address. So when you start thinking about how you're going to police this, for the auction houses that do not quote unquote permit shill bidding. How far do they go to police it? The obvious stuff where if somebody tries to bid on their own item, the computer system recognizes it and kicks the bid out. Okay, well, that's better than the auction houses that just come out and say that they're allowing it. And you know why those auction houses are coming out and changing their rules now and saying it's allowed? Because nobody wants to go to jail. That's already happened back in the 2010, 2015 era, where auction house principals, owners did go to jail. It's all on public record. And nobody wants to be in that position again. So, and the other easy answer a lot of people have for this situation is, well, just give the auction house a reserve amount on your item. They'll put the reserve in effect, and then if it doesn't reach the reserve, you don't have to sell it if it's not a good price, a price that's acceptable to you to sell. Well, many bidders that bid in auctions, the auction houses, especially some of the really big bidders, if they see a reserve price auction, they immediately bypass it. They will not bid because they don't want to be taken advantage of, bidding up to a certain amount. And then sometimes the reserve is disclosed, sometimes the reserve is hidden. They don't want to be taken advantage of, so they just won't participate. So now you've eliminated many bidders that possibly would have bid on that auction item. So what does that do? That's very strong chance that's going to lower the final price of the item. No consignor wants the final price of their item to be lower. The whole point is for it to be more. So nobody's going to accept a reserve situation when the auction house in their rules states that they can bid on it, the consignor can bid on it. Nobody knows about it then, supposedly. And that's the route that the consignor wants to go. And like I've been saying, especially more so on the high value 5, 6, and 7 figure items. This is I believe this is going on all over the hobby and been going on for years now. And it went on in the 80s, it went on in the 90s, and the 2000s, probably with a select small number of auction houses, a small number of eBay sellers. Maybe we're doing this. It seems to have, as the numbers have gotten bigger, the values have gotten higher. The whole scope of this seems to have exploded. And in my financial situation, I can't continue to buy into this anymore. So I've told you how I'm going to handle it. Um, Hopefully, I'll be able to enjoy the other parts of the hobby. Like I said, maybe one day things get cleaned up. I'll be able to come back and start buying my vintage pre-war rookie cards and the stuff that I enjoy. But at this point, it's not a happy day for me. It's a video I wish I never had to make and put out, but I thought it was important to get my feelings out there as some others have. A lot of people obviously very upset about it, and nothing really more to say about it. So I hope you guys have a good day, and I'll see you next time.